Nostalgic Movie Review from Nerdy Man.
I still just love the new intro.
It's so great.
You guys have to let us know if you like the new intro. I added some movie clips of people saying our title of our podcast because I thought that just sounded perfect for a movie review podcast.
It fit.
And we still love that our brother, Michael, did that intro music. It is beautiful.
Thank you very much, Michael. You are wonderful. And with that, welcome back to new and nostalgic movie reviews.
From Nerdy Married Men. That's us. Nerdy Married. Yes, that's right. We're not single. Back off.
Sorry.
I'm not.
On today's episode, we are talking about Spontaneous. That is a good pick from Steven. Go ahead and start us off there.
This movie came out in 2020. It was rated R, and it is 1 hour and 41 minutes long. And this movie is one of my favorite genre-bending films. This is a comedy, drama, horror, romance.
Fantastic.
If you fucking told me there was going to be a way to put all of these four categories and make sure that all four of these things had prominent pieces of this movie where it actually almost felt like 25% comedy, 25% drama, 25% horror, and 25% romance, I would have been like, there's no way you're going to make that work. No way. This was an Amazon Prime original, which is ridiculous. I would never would have thought Amazon Prime would go this hard with like one of their first like big movies.
Yeah, it's so good.
This stars Catherine Langford. She is from the 13 Reasons Why, if you ever watched that Netflix show. This is Charlie Plummer, Yvonne Orji, Haley Law, Piper Perabo, which is one of my all-time favorite. Like, she was an old school crush of mine.
Oh, okay.
She was in Coyote Ugly, one of my favorite rom-coms.
Okay.
Where she actually plays like a bartender that actually, because the Coyote Ugly actually is a bar franchise. There's actually one in Denver.
Oh, that's funny.
On 6th Street. We went there once, but it was still like right at the end of COVID, so everyone was wearing masks and none of the dancers were dancing on the bar. That's a big thing. It's a country bar where the female bartenders dance on the bar a lot of the time. It's a really cool thing. But Piper Perabo is the lead in that. I absolutely love seeing her. And then we had Rob Hubel as well. Was another big person in this movie.
Oh, it was interesting seeing him because I'm used to seeing him in like, he's in some episodes of The Office and a few other things. So it was kind of cool. I'm like, hey, he's from The Office.
He's from that thing.
He's from the other show.
Yeah. So I guess I will let you read the synopsis this time.
All right. Get ready for the outrageous coming-of-age love story about growing up and blowing up. When students in their school begin exploding, literally, my goodness, seniors Mara and Dylan struggle to survive in a world where each moment may be their last.
Yes, and that is a fantastic kind of short way to say what this is without giving anything away. Especially the growing up and blowing up.
It really makes sense for the time this movie came out in 2020. This movie is basically about a pandemic happening within a school and these seniors trying to figure out how they're going to get through it and survive the rest of the school year.
Yep.
It's just, it's funny seeing the parallels between that and real life.
Yes. And this movie does so good at making everything feel so real. The heart-to-heart moments feel so real. I'll talk. I guess we'll go ahead and keep going with our flow. Our Rotten Tomato score for this movie, I believe this was a 97%.
97. And the audience score is 66, which is very surprising. Wide range there.
Very wide range. It's kind of crazy how like the audience didn't like this one as much. Like, it's a little weird to me, but it is kind of a dark comedy film. So I could understand that the brutality of what this movie is not for everyone. Yeah,
and I mean, the director tends to make movies fairly similar. I've only seen a couple of his other movies. It's Brian Duffield is the director, and he actually wrote some other movies. He wrote Underwater, which I haven't seen that one yet. but he also wrote The Babysitter, which was on
Oh,
Netflix.
that's an amazing
And
one, too.
That movie is so great. And so when I found out that he also did this, it made me that much more excited to check it out.
If you guys haven't watched The Babysitter and The Babysitter 2, watch them.
Check it out.
Fantastic. Samara Weaving is basically a Margot Robbie identical twin.
We might just have to do a dual episode at some point showcasing the two Babysitter movies.
Yes.
But with this movie, Spontaneous, I think he knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, no, this movie is incredible in every way, and it's probably going to be one on, I know at least my list, of one that's going to be hard to beat for the rating I give this movie.
Okay. For me, it's probably going to be a little lower than yours, but I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's really good.
Did you have any fun facts for this one?
My fun fact was about Duffield writing The Babysitter.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen much about this movie behind the scenes yet. I tried to look some things up, and I just haven't seen much.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of stuff and research about this movie to find.
Let's see. It was filmed in Canada. That's pretty cool. So there's a little fun fact there. Okay, right here. The quote on Dylan's headstone.
Oh, yeah. I'll be right here are the last words E.T. spoke in the movie. Which, actually, there's a couple of E.T. references in the movie. Like, I absolutely love the moment when both of them are behind that wall. Like, the clear sheet between them.
Oh, yeah.
And they point their fingers at each other.
Elliot! Elliot! And they're just yelling at each other, Elliot!
And all the hospital staff's like, what the fuck is wrong with these two?
Are we sure these kids aren't on drugs?
Elliot! So I guess what's your first impressions of this movie? Or, how did you feel before giving your score, and then go ahead and give your score?
This movie made me feel many things. I honestly didn't know what to expect, but this movie made me feel pretty good. A lot of the acting in it is well done. There's a lot of very heartfelt moments. There's a lot of funny moments, and when the serious gets there, I felt every emotion in the book watching this movie. So it left me feeling satisfied after I finished it.
All right.
And with that, my score for this movie, I will give it, I'll say an 89%.
All right.
Just below a 90, but that's because it had a few things I'll go into with the downfalls. But all in all, it's a good film. I'd recommend it to anyone.
I'm pretty much in the same boat. This movie, to me, it is just so amazing in the way it does everything about this. The way the comedy goes, it always hits. You're always laughing every time there's a funny moment. The way the sad moments are, you feel sad. When the horrifying things happen, you're scared. It's actually terrifying. You think about the things they're going through, and you're like, what the fuck? I don't even know what I would do if that happened right next to me. And as many times as it's happened right next to them. It's insane, the trauma and stuff that these kids would have to go through. And that's why I do say that this film's probably not for everyone. It is gory. This is, we say, all of these comedy and romance stuff, and that's a big part of it, but it is still gory, and it is still horrifying. It's got some really scary shit in this movie.
Exactly.
And one of the quotes that I kind of love about this, and what's one of the reasons I loved, it's the movie, main quote, and what I really believe this movie was saying is, it's just life. Deserve has got nothing to do with it. Life's not fair.
Nope.
There is no explanation sometimes of just why things are shitty, and it's just shitty. And for that reason, I gave this movie a 97. I only pushed it down from 100 because honestly, I do think this is a perfect movie in my eyes. In my eyes, this is a straight 100%. I'd knock it down to a 97 only for the fact that I know I cannot recommend this movie to everybody. I would love to, and I think a 100% movie for me is something that is perfect in every way to me, but also something that no matter who I was with, I would be like, hey, we should watch this movie. And I can't say I would do that with Spontaneous. There's a lot of people I would not watch this movie with.
And that makes sense, because it's definitely not going to be for everybody.
Yeah. So, yes, we are... I guess I'll go ahead and we're going to announce our next movie. That way, if you guys are waiting to listen to this episode because of spoilers and stuff, we'll tell you what that next one is. And we are doing my bad pick movie, which is We Are Your Friends, starring Zac Efron. I believe you can find this for rent on most places. I don't think it's free anywhere.
No, I don't believe so. It's renting on like Amazon Prime, or you could
Vudu,
get it on
or
Vudu or something like that.
Which I think most of the time rentals on that movie is like $3 or $4.
Yeah, most of that it's worth a watch. I'd say check it out if you're interested.
It's a really good movie for people who like EDM and trance and ecstasy music, dubstep, all that kind of stuff. It's a movie about Zac Efron being a DJ. So check that out next week.
All right, let's get into the spoiler talks and the good and bad of the movie.
We needed some cheering.
Dig it. All right, why don't you get us started here?
All right. So we didn't really fully say what this movie was fully about earlier. We kind of wanted to leave that to you guys as a surprise. But if you're listening to the spoilers and still haven't seen it, basically this movie is randomly at this one high school in this one classroom in the middle of class. A girl spontaneously combusts, spewing blood everywhere.
She literally explodes into like a mist / just slop of blood.
It's like her entire like skeleton and flesh and everything immediately is vaporized, and all the blood that was in her body just blast out the entire room from that point.
All that's left are her clothes and shoes. Just everything is
and
just
her clothes and
covered in
shoes completely fine, not scorched, not any rips, nothing wrong with them, just fine.
Just a little of blood.
And it's super fast. And one of the things I absolutely love about this movie is we, as the audience and as the two main characters, we do not see the blow up until late in the movie.
Yeah, we keep seeing the aftermath, or we see it from the side. Like, we don't see the initial right in front of the screen. I think it follows a lot with the main character, Mara. She'll, like, the first one in the movie, she leans down to pick something up. She dropped at her desk, and the explosion happens. And all you see is off screen, and you see the blood explode into the screen.
Yeah, and you see blood, like, hit her hair and hit all of her shoes and cover her entire, like, right side in blood. But she didn't see it.
It's about halfway into the movie when you actually see someone on screen blow up right there.
And it's intense.
It is.
And it gets more and more intense the more it happens.
And I'll say the effects of it were really cool. Whatever they did, CG, practical, I think they did a mix of both.
I gotta say, if you, I think we're gonna do this on our list later on, but in the Kingsman movie, if you've ever seen the Kingsman movie, in that scene where all the heads are blowing up, it's that. Almost to a T. That same...
Yeah, an explosion of blood.
It's so cool.
It's really good.
I love just the way, like, the characters described people in this movie. Like, the way that she narrated a lot of these scenes. Like, she says about I forgot what the girl's name was, but she said she's a sundress kind of person. Cute, airy, not offensive.
Yeah.
I just love that line.
I love the way they describe the characters in this movie. And the other thing I love is how it shows how everyone is dealing with the trauma of everything going on. You know, some people are being more lighthearted about it, and some people are just depressed as all hell. And then you have some people that are just trying to be supportive in the people that died, and almost like to cult status where everyone's wearing like these sweatsuits to show the love for the people that have passed away. And it's really interesting. And I love how the comedy in this movie is really pushed to the forefront at times.
Yes.
But every time there is a death, it is not treated as a joke.
No,
it's
is
never
sad.
the butt of any joke.
It's sad. It's horrifying. It's like, it's seriously like you put that so perfectly, because that is like the quintessential thing that me and Jen talked about loving about this movie is the comedy. When it's there, it's for a good reason, and as soon as it gets serious, it is serious.
Yeah, and it does a 180 flip, and it's done so well. And I think it fits with the title. Like, you never know when spontaneous will happen, and when it happens, it's always so shocking. You'll be in the middle of a sentence with some characters, and the whole time you're watching every person on screen wondering who's going to be next. And then randomly in the middle of a sentence, someone will just pop. Or maybe not. Maybe the scene will end perfectly fine, and then later that night you just hear a pop happen. It's so crazy.
Yeah. Like, the different times it happens and it being so random, there was no pattern to this movie.
No.
There was no way you were going to know when it was going to happen or who it was going to happen to. And I really liked that. Like, I was actually very fearful of the main characters. And since we are kind of in spoilers, when one of the main characters dies, holy fuck. You're just like,
oh,
whoa.
At first when it happens, you don't know which of the two died. The screen
seriously.
cuts to red with an explosion, and you're like, who was it? You don't find out until the next scene where the surviving character is covered in blood, and it's very reminiscent of like Stephen King's Carrie, where just covered in blood.
Which I laughed at so hard because at the beginning of the movie, at the Halloween thing, she dressed as Carrie, not covered in blood, and she made a joke about not being able to be covered in blood in that dress because of the other girl dying. And she's like, thanks, Olivia.
And then, of course, end of the movie, she's covered in blood.
In almost that same dress. Like,
that is so funny. That didn't click for me.
I when I saw that, I was like, great. I even wrote it down. I was like, you went back to the beginning. I had the perfect callback.
They had
scene.
They had a setup for later, a great foreshadowing moment, and you don't even realize it.
No, I absolutely loved like the first parts of their relationship. Like, at first, when he texts her and she doesn't know it's him, she's like, "Don't send a dick pic. Don't send a dick pic." And he sends a picture of Dick Cheney, and then he sends another message right after. Sorry, it's a little crooked.
Oh yeah, and he sends a picture of Richard Nixon as well, and he just starts sending her a bunch of dick pics, and there are a bunch of people named Richard.
And
it's
she's
so
like,
funny.
"That's dumb. Send more." And it's just so cute. Like,
and with that, the chemistry between the leads throughout the whole movie is just fantastic, and they're just so well written. I can't praise it enough. Even like one of my downfalls is some of the sappy moments. They're too sappy, but even in those moments that I was like, it's a bit much, but it was still they still had great chemistry, and it flowed well. So even in those moments when I felt a little disconnected, I'm like, wow, it's still charming.
dude, those sappy moments, I love those ones so much because it just reminded me of how sappy I was at that age. Like, seriously, it was so bad. But going even more, like, we talk about the humor, like, one of my favorite dark humor moments of this movie, I laughed so hard at, and I felt so bad, was after they go to that funeral, and they go to the diner afterwards, the funeral of the first girl that died, I think her name was Olivia. They're asking each other how the funeral was, and the girl's like, "Oh, it was really sad. I hated seeing his parents. Oh, I really didn't like, it was just really sad to have everyone there." And like, yeah, I don't know if it's gonna happen again. Yeah. And they're like, "What about you?" To the main guy, and he's like, "Oh, this is the second best funeral for me. My dad's was better." Well,
that dark humor.
Maybe if they lose another kid, they'll try harder next time. And I'm sorry if that joke offends anybody, but it's so horribly funny. I love some dark humor.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's bad, but it's good. I love that they try to say that pretty much everyone in the movie is cruel in their own ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Every character is so different.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I want to...
There's basically not enough time to share all the good things that we love about this movie.
Well, I guess one of the most heartfelt moments for me, the one I just love so much, is when the main character, she finally is getting over her like grieving stage, and she's finally getting into the acceptance and stuff like that, and she's finally started drinking, and she finally apologized to her parents, and she goes and she lays on the grave of her boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
And her mom is there too, and she asked to lay down next to her.
It's the boyfriend's mom.
Yeah. And they lay down together on the grave, and they look at the quote from E.T., and she thought that was awesome. And then she like starts crying, and she says, you know, the first time I really hung out with Dylan, I was high on shrooms, and I saw so many of him, and now I can't see any of him.
Ugh.
And that line almost there gets me. Like, it's so perfect, because that's another amazing callback to the movie, because she was high on shrooms the first time they met. Yeah. Like, when they actually started talking to each other, after he first said that he had a crush on her. And he's holding her hair while she's throwing up because she drank too many shrooms at once.
Yep.
And she looks up at him, and she sees like 8 of them just standing around. She's like, this is weird.
Such a touching scene.
And it's just so an amazing line. And I don't like, it's insane to me. Like, I can't believe like that line exists. One of the really funny moments for me is when they're at the football game, at the homecoming game, and she's like trying to she's taking all these pictures of 3 of the football players.
Yep.
And Dylan's like, why are you just taking pictures? And she goes, look. And they all turn around at one point, and their names were We Love Cox. Their last names were We Love and Cox, all right next to each other. And she took a picture because they were all standing together.
Yeah, and they were like in the slight wrong order. It was We Cox Love. And she's like, I'm waiting for the perfect moment that it'll line up and just say We Love Cox. And so she keeps taking pictures, and it's just so funny.
Which, I actually have a real life moment of this happening for me.
What?
So, I won't say where it was because of just like, I don't want to show anyone out or like put anyone on the spot or anything, but there was a place I was at where people were lined up, and we knew all 3 of their last names. And these 3 people sat next to each other, and their last names were Buttram, Boner, Hooker. So I butt rammed a hooker with my boner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were all 3 sitting next to each other, and I laughed so hard, and I think I pointed it out at the time. And I was just like, so seeing that moment just brought me back that memory. I was like, yes.
Brought you back. So with that, do you have any downfalls for the movie? I know you gave it a super high score, but is there anything that you feel did not hit the mark with you?
I don't think I wrote anything for downfalls.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm looking at it, and my highlights actually went down into my downfalls area and took over my downfalls area, and I didn't actually write anything for downfalls.
That's how you know you love a movie.
That's what I said. Like I said, it's a 100% movie for me. I don't find any faults with this.
There were just a couple for me, and they weren't
I'm curious.
Specific. The third act of the movie was just not as engaging, and I get why. It was traumatic, and Mara is just aimlessly wandering, and those moments, it felt aimless. I just felt, I got to this point where I'm like, can we move on already? Can we just keep going? And I understand why it did that, because I think it was trying to provoke that feeling with you. But for me, that was a downfall where I was like, it went on just too long to where I was like, I wish we got there quicker. And the only other downfall I have is that you never find out the cause of why people are exploding, which I know is explained, that life happens. Sometimes you don't get a reason, you don't get an explanation. It just happens. But me being like, I want to know the answer, I was like, come on. What's the cause? Why?
I'm so excited that you said this, because this is actually what I said to Jen is my biggest highlight
That's so funny. That's like it's a downfall for me and for you. It's
No,
like,
it is.
yeah.
It is honestly what I think saves this movie.
Really.
And here's why. I had a good thing with this. So when we watched the movie, Chicken and I, we have actually watched it together twice now. And both times we both kind of said the same thing. I really love that they don't say any reason why this happened to any of them and why it just randomly stopped. That is the most amazing part, because that's just the whole reason of the movie is that. That's like the entire message of the movie is just that life's not fair and no one deserves anything, and you can never explain some things sometimes. But also with that, in movies, say like, I bring up Rampage as a good example. The new Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie, Rampage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that video game movie.
Yes, they could have just made it a video game adaptation movie without any scientific explanation. They tried to give a scientific explanation, and for Jen, being a microbiologist and having a master's degree in microbiology, hated this movie as soon as they gave the description of why these monsters were the way they were.
It just...
Sometimes the reasoning, like, you cannot come up, and I have thought about this a lot, try to come up with an explanation for this that makes any sort of sense where people could actually have an explanation.
It's not possible.
So if it's not possible, then this would be a bad explanation, and you would hate it more for it.
It would definitely probably pull you out of the movie, but
I mean, I do get what
wish.
you're saying, because it does, like, you always have that wanting of knowing.
Yeah, it's people are they fear the unknown, or they just are uncomfortable by it. So that's why people love satisfying endings, or finding something out, knowing the answer to questions, which I know this movie is trying to explain, that there isn't always an answer.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why this movie might not get as much love from like the audience as we saw in the audience score is it is probably a little meta. And if you don't like meta style films that have a higher level of thinking where you have to like think about a lot of these different things and all the different perspectives of it and really analyze this movie, I don't think you're going to like it as much if you just take it at face value.
That can make sense.
I mean, that is the way it is for me. Like, the more and more I watch this movie, the more and more I think about this movie, the more I love and, like, I realize why they did certain things and certain connections, like that Carrie thing that I talked about. Like, there's so many of the E.T. moments. Like, there's so many of those moments that you don't always notice the first time. And going back, I'm like, I love this even more.
I'm definitely going to look forward to watching it again for that reason. I do want to try to dig more into it.
The one thing that I almost said was a downfall, but I actually think it's best to have it this way. It's more tragic this way, but it just sucks that it's more tragic. She never got a chance to tell me that she loved him.
Very sad.
He said it to her, but she never said it back, and she wanted to.
Yeah, and she was even about to, it felt like, anyway.
Yeah. One of the things I've never thought about that this made me think about, that made me like really just like think about life and death a lot more, was peeling off the stick person on a car when they lost their kid and they peeled off one of the kid stickers. Holy shit.
Oh, I was crushed when I saw it. Like, wait. And the character's like, oh, so that's what happens when people die to those... that's what happens to those stick figures.
Seriously, I had never contemplated having to do that, and that's such a simple scene of just showing a woman peeling off a sticker off of her van was traumatic. And that's what this movie does. It can make the smallest detail huge.
I can't... Yeah, when I saw that, I was crushed.
Yeah, I love the parents smoking weed with their daughter scene.
They're like, shut up, we know you do it. Here's a gift from us. It's like a Christmas gift.
And I love... Her drunk scenes get a little annoying, but I love her drunk scenes in some parts, especially when she's making the drink.
That's the best drunk scene. The rest were kind of just meh for me and traumatic. But that one, it's like she's making a YouTube video explaining how to make a special drink that she invented herself, and then it pans over and her dad is just watching her with this face like he doesn't know what to do, but he understands she's going through some shit.
Yeah, because she's had like I don't know, like 8 people blow up in front of her at this point or something like that.
So many.
And she makes this like with cranberry and like vodka and tequila and all this other stuff. And then she pulls up the cocktail and she's making this YouTube video and she's like, I call this cocktail All My Friends and Boyfriend Are Dead.
So sad.
And then she slams that shit. And then she goes, shh. It's a secret. Because I'm underage. Don't tell anyone. And it's just so fucking funny. I'm just like, yes. Yes, 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 yes.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to add?
One of the other like really true and traumatic moments for me was the Christian protesting the kids, saying that these kids are demons and the demons are exploding out of them, and that's why they're... Because it brings a lot of truth that there are always people on one event that will find... They're trying to find some causation. They're trying to find some reason of why this is happening. And since no one has one, they'll turn to religion or they'll turn to this or they'll say it's something supernatural or paranormal or... when like there could just be no explanation, but everyone will jump to one.
Everyone makes their own explanation, whether it be a religion or a conspiracy theory or some sort of unknown entity.
Yes. And so I thought that was pretty accurately shown in this movie. And it was just a quick scene, but it was pretty brutal just seeing that. I'm like, that would totally be what happens.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah. One of my other favorite lines, was the cosmic bullshit of the universe was the reason that she put at the end of this movie.
Oh, yep, that's the final line of the movie.
Yep, the cosmic bullshit of the universe. Perfect line.
Roll credits.
All right. I guess, is that all we're talking about with this?
I think that was spontaneous.
All right. It's a little bit shorter of an episode. I guess when there's nothing bad to talk about, you kind of just fly through it.
Well, hopefully you stuck with us this far and you enjoyed that movie. And if you haven't watched it yet and you got this far, sorry, but please go watch it.
Seriously, we didn't say some things, and there's a lot of parts in this movie that we kind of kept in the dark. We kept in the dark for a reason. This movie needs to be watched. I recommend it to almost everyone unless you're faint of heart about like really high trauma, depression kind of stuff, and stuff about kids blowing up randomly. Like it's graphic, it's gory, it's everything that it sounds like.
Yep. So with that, join us next time. Again, we are reviewing We Are Your Friends, and have a good one.